Hey everybody, welcome to Tathaastu. Today I'm going to talk to you about a really wonderful movie that we watched called Kannagi, which is directed by Yashwanth Kishore, starring Kirti Pandyan, Amo Abhirami and a whole host of other wonderful actors. I do think I'd have to start this movie thoughts by telling you that I think Yashwant talks significantly through this movie about how male gaze is a completely different way of looking at women problems, and the way most women-centric movies tend to be about, or women-centric movies made by men tend to be about how the male gaze is something that always tends to nullify or sort of like make those issues not so relevant or not so big or important as they're supposed to be. Whereas I think in this case Yashwant makes a point to understand, empathize and emulate the women's gaze, and I think he does a fairly successful job in terms of just being able to show the characters in the movie as to how they are, the kind of situations they're put into, especially the fact that this movie is about a lot of different problems that plague women in the current day society, like divorce, the stigma around divorce, the sort of ritualistic nature of marriage and arranged marriages within Indian cultures, the kind of trauma that women go through during pregnancies, especially unwanted pregnancies, the kind of horrible mentalities that we still maintain even though we're significantly progressive in probably urban cultures, the fact that marriage is always glorified. These are issues that I think Yashwant touches upon to quite a large extent, and I think he is successful in delivering why each of those issues need to be looked not from a male point of view but from a woman's point of view. And I'll explain to you why I think that is an important distinction, right? So the distinction that Yashwant and the team try to bring about in this movie is that they want to tell us why women struggle to make peace with the kind of stigmatization that exists with society, and why making peace is a problem, why rebelling becomes a problem, why trying to remain independent becomes a problem. I think all of those things are analyzed fairly well and is given due importance in this movie. I think some of the issues are fairly superficial in terms of the way they've been addressed. For example, there's always a running commentary about how a very overbearing mother continues to always look for the right or the Mr. Right according to her instead of looking for what the girl really wants. I think that arc never really gets resolved significantly, but it could also definitely be the fact that Yashwant wants to convey that patriarchy isn't something that is specifically restricted only to men, but also to women who are ingrained within patriarchal structures and therefore perpetuate that structure as well. So I think in both those counts, we could probably say that it was well done, but I do think that it was sort of superficial in terms of the way the characters were portrayed, but it could have been something much more than what it was. And I do think that there was a lot of concentration that could have gone into that. But other than that, I think the movie progresses fairly well. And what it also does really well is try and create high moments for each and every women character within the movie. And each of those high moments are validated by the overall narrative and the overall climax of the movie. And I think the climax is very well done, and I think stupendous effort in terms of trying to bridge the gaps between what started off as a story of 4 women ends up being a beautiful climax as to what it eventually becomes. So I think it's a great effort in that sense. In terms of the acting, I do think that the standout performances are from Amo Birami and from Kirti Pandyan. I do think they spend so much time internalizing those emotions, because Amo has to pretty much handle the weight of all of the pressures that exist within her family, including the fact that she probably has to now take over the mantle of being the stronger person within the family because of a tragic loss within the family. I do think Amo Birami spends a good amount of time in just solidly making that character work for all of us. Kirti spends so much time in melancholy, and that character, every time that it comes up on screen, you can feel the tension, you can feel the helplessness within that character. Even though the character is not speaking a lot of things, I do think that character's very, very well done. And I think by the end of the movie, you'd find out why this character doesn't even say a lot of things, right? And with regard to the other two female protagonists in this movie, I thought they did their jobs well, but I do think that their characters probably did not get enough amount of screen time to show why a large chunk of their problems weren't, let's say, generic. I do think that there was a sort of generic nature in the way their problems were portrayed. I do think there could have been a lot more concentration with regard to Netra and Nadi's characters, as to how they're the ones who are losing out on a lot of things. But otherwise, excellent in terms of the characterization. Kudos to the late Mailsamy. What an amazing performance. I do think his performance among the supporting cast was the most solid performance, I would say, in terms of just the empathy and the kind of things that he brought as a progressive father to Abirami. I think it was excellent. In terms of camera work, I thought some portions felt little glitchy in terms of some under the face shots where it looked like the camera was a little foggy. But I do think that the camera work was really, really good otherwise in general. But a few glitches here and there, obviously you're going to have to look at it in terms of just how well the movie eventually gets portrayed. So no big complaints as such. Editing was crisp, although I did feel that there were some portions where dialogues did get a little repetitive in terms of what they were trying to convey. Especially with Nadi's character, I did think there was a lot of repetition in terms of just hammering home the progressiveness. I do think that there was some amount of just like in your face kind of repetition in terms of dialogues as well as scenes. So I do think there could have been more development rather than just like a generic set of like situations where this person was put in through. But overall, very satisfying watch. I do love the fact that filmmakers are taking the onus to be socially responsible and also want to do movies where they believe that the audience will watch, which gets undercut by the fact that I watched this movie today on a Tuesday, 5 days after its release in an empty theater in Madurai, which is kind of sad, because these are the kind of movies that you'd want more and more people to watch, and more people to enjoy, more and more people to understand and validate. I think these are the movies that require the money that are probably going to the big blockbusters. There needs to be a way to solve this, but I don't really know how to. But I would say these are the kind of movies that you should all make sure to follow, to spread the word, to make sure people watch these kind of movies and not wait for it to come on OTT. The fact that a lot of us keep going back to saying small budget movies are to be watched on OTT is probably a misnomer in and of itself. We need to spend time, effort and money to not just watch the big blockbusters, but also to watch the ones that are actually really good cinema. And I think this is one good piece of cinema. Anyway, thank you very much, everybody. I hope you had a great time, and please do go watch the movie. It is still in theaters, and have a great week. Thank you.